Okay, so I was talking about the relation of the nerve with the vessels. Basilar artery, when it reaches the interpeninsular fossa, or you can say it reaches the upper portion of the pons, it gives out bilateral branches to the both the sides, and that is superior cerebral artery, superior cerebellar artery. So the superior cerebellar artery will wind around the cerebral peduncles and will wind dorsally to reach the cerebellum, and this artery passes below to both these third and fourth cranial nerves, superior cerebellar artery. Then, because basilar artery is median in the interpeninsular fossa, interpeninsular system, then it will give its terminal branch to both the sides. And this terminal branch is posterior cerebral artery. Now, this posterior cerebral artery will pass above to both the nerves, oculomotor and trochlear nerve, and it will, it will, because these are also bilateral branches, so they will also wind laterally to the cerebral peduncles, passing above to the third and fourth cranial nerves. So you've seen that third and fourth cranial nerves, when they're passing through this CSF or the intracranial cords, they pass between these two arteries, posterior cerebral artery above and superior cerebellar artery below. Then here, the important structure, one of the important structure in the interpeninsular fossa or interpeninsular cistern is the circle of Willis. That's the arterial circulus Willis. So this communicates, actually posterior cerebral artery is a terminal branch, you can say, is from the vertebral artery. There are other two cerebral arteries from the internal carotid, and that's anterior cerebral artery and middle cerebral artery. They also contribute in this circle of Willis. So the communication between the internal carotid and vertebral arteries is through posterior communicating artery, which actually posterior communicating artery is a branch of the cerebral portion of internal carotid, right? I have taught you about this. So the posterior communicating artery from internal carotid artery, anastomosis with the posterior cerebral artery. So as to complete the circle of Willis, and this is placed in the interpeninsular fossa. So another important relation, and remember this has actually been asked somewhere in some exam, about the relation of oculomotor nerve with posterior communicating artery. So remember that the nerve is related laterally to the posterior communicating artery. Oculomotor nerve runs laterally to the posterior communicating artery in the interpeninsular fossa. Okay. Then further, when they run forward, remember this much portion all is a content of posterior cranial fossa or infratentorial compartment, and there was a free border of tentorial, also called tentorial notch. So in the posterior cranial fossa, what was there? The hindbrain, that includes pons, medulla and cerebellum, and the lower portion of the midbrain. So that means this is actually the midbrain. This is resting over the clivus, that's basi inner surface of the basi-occiput. This tilted bone is actually basi-occiput, and it is reaching down to foramen magnum anteriorly, anterior margin of the foramen magnum. And here it is this petrous temporal bone, which was dividing the middle and posterior cranial fossa, right? And it is this endosteal layer of the meninges covering the bones, and this is the meningeal layer of the dura, which encloses this cavernous sinus here on the lateral sides of the body of sphenoid, or the lateral side of the sella turcica, both the sides. So this space is actually cavernous sinus now. So after passing through the interpedunculaar cistern, this nerve, oculomotor nerve, will reach to the roof. It will reach into the cavernous sinus by piercing the roof of the cavernous sinus posterolaterally in the roof, just lateral to the posterior clinoid process. You remember there was this, base occiput. When it is reaches above, it actually has two pointed projections called posterior clinoid process, right? And onto posterior clinoid process, you remember the posterior border of the diaphragma cilia was attached, right? So which actually will, it's not seen here because this section is actually a little lateral, that will be medially placed. So this nerve, oculomotor nerve, when it reaches to the cavernous sinus, remember it perforates or passes, pierces this roof of the cavernous sinus posteriorly and lateral to the posterior clinoid process, and then it enters into the cavernous sinus running along its lateral wall. Okay. And similarly, you find trochlear nerve also reaching to the cavernous sinus, passing below to this oculomotor nerve, and this nerve, abducent nerve, it's emerging from the pontomedullary junction. So it is taking a high jump, right? And remember, there was this petrous temporal covered with dura, and there was a fold of dura reaching to the sphenoid, and that was called petrosphenoidal ligament. And below to the petrosphenoidal ligament, there's a canal formed from where this abducent nerve enters into the cavernous sinus, and it runs in the medial wall of the cavernous sinus along with the internal carotid artery running infralateral to the artery. And this abducent nerve, the space there is called canal of Dorello, through which this abducent nerve enters the cavernous sinus. Okay. Now we'll study about the intracavernous course. Intracavernous course is the third route, third pathway. Like, when you have studied about intraneural course, then pedunculaar course, cistern course. Now we are talking about this course running through this cavernous sinus. So you have seen, you've already been taught about this, the body of sphenoid which lodges the air sinuses called the sphenoidal air sinuses. It is a paired sinus, right? Then it is covered by endosteal layer of the dural matter, and this is the meningeal layer of the dura mater. So the space in between, it's the dural venous sinus called cavernous sinus, and this is the diaphragma cilia. And diaphragma cilia, there is a median perforation for the infundibulum, and through which there is this gland hypophysis cerebri, located in this groove called sella turcica, right? And then you see in the cavernous sinus, that dural venous sinuses are very much similar to veins. They also have an endothelial lining. So here you find is the endothelial lining of the cavernous sinus. Okay. So you were saying that this, and that have a sheath around, because this artery passes through this cavernous sinus, internal carotid, and just infralateral to the internal carotid is abducent nerve. They're also covered by an endothelial sheath, and these two structures are related medial in the cavernous sinus. However, in the lateral wall in the cavernous sinus, you will find this oculomotor nerve placed superiorly. Then you have trochlear nerve below to that. Then you have this V1 ophthalmic division of trigeminal and V2 maxillary division of trigeminal. All these four nerves are placed laterally. However, V3 division, that is the mandibular division of trigeminal, remember that it will not pass through cavernous sinus because it has a very short course in the cranial cavity. Soon after given out from the Gasserian ganglion, it dips down in the foramen ovale to emerge out of the skull. So now we have seen that oculomotor nerve runs in the lateral wall superior to the trochlear nerve, or you can say highest in the different among the different nerves in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. But one more thing is, it runs its entire course and reaches entirely into the superior, orbital fissure. It will divide into its two divisions within the cavernous sinus. So oculomotor nerve, when it is reaching towards this superior orbital fissure, before that, within the cavernous sinus, this oculomotor nerve will divide into its two divisions. Okay, upper and lower division of oculomotor nerves. So that means this nerve, when it will enter into the orbit, it will enter with its two divisions, upper and lower divisions. Okay, so now you're seeing this is the inside of the orbit seen from the anterior view. So when you see the orbit, it's a four-sided pyramidal socket, bony socket, which lodges the eyeballs, and it has a roof, a floor, a medial wall, and a lateral wall. And at the level of apex, in the body of sphenoid, you find is this canal called the optic canal, and through the optic canal, it's this optic nerve which enters the orbit, the second cranial nerve, along with ophthalmic artery. Now, ophthalmic artery is infralateral to the optic nerve in the optic canal. Acha, one more thing, a little in detail about this optic canal, although I am not teaching the detail of osteology here, but optic canal, if you take a cross section of optic canal, one end will be opening in the middle cranial fossa, posterior end, and the anterior end will be opening in the orbit, right? So if you remember, there was a question which is very commonly asked about the cross section of male urethra. Remember, cross sectional section of urethra at its prostatic part will be eccentric, right? Then cross section of urethra at the level of membranous urethra will be stellate in shape. Cross section of penile urethra will be a transverse slit, remember, and the cross section of terminal portion of penile urethra will be a vertical slit. So if you remember, the questions do come on this also. Similarly, talking about the optic canal. So optic canal, the end which the posterior end which faces the middle cranial fossa, remember, it is a transverse slit, transverse opening, transversely elliptical rather. And the anterior end of the optic canal, which opens into the orbit, is a vertical elliptical opening, vertically elliptical. And the middle portion of the optic canal is circular. Okay? To help you remember this, I would say you just remember the penile urethra. And that is how the terminal portion was vertical slit. Here also, the anterior end of the optic canal is vertically elliptical in shape, and the posterior end of the optic canal is a transverse elliptical opening. The middle portion is circular. Okay, so you've done about this optic canal, and this you're seeing is superior orbital fissure. Now, superior orbital fissure is a bony gap between the roof and the lateral wall of the orbit, as well as reaching down up till the apex of the orbit, as well as the floor and the lateral wall as well. So it has three ends, like there is this common tendinous ring called annulus tendinous ring of Zinn, circle of Zinn भी कहते हैं. It's a tendinous ring, and this tendinous ring actually passes or encloses the optic canal, as well as the middle portion of supraorbital fissure. So, and this tendinous ring provides attachment to the four recti: superior rectus, medial rectus, superior, inferior, medial, and lateral rectus, right? Although remember, lateral rectus also has a slip here from separated additional slip from the greater wing of sphenoid as well. Now, the supraorbital fissure is divided into three parts. This is called the lateral portion or supralateral portion of the supraorbital fissure, from where the three nerves that enter are LFT. It's easy to remember. LFT, liver function test. LFT means lacrimal, frontal, and trochlear. These are the three nerves which enter through the lateral portion of supraorbital fissure. Then this middle portion of the superior orbital fissure, what are the four nerves which enter here? This will be upper and lower division of oculomotor nerve. And between the two divisions, it will be the nasociliary nerve which will enter here. And laterally, infralaterally to the two divisions of oculomotor will be abducent nerve. So these are the four nerves which enter into the orbit through the middle portion of supraorbital fissure between this common tendinous ring. Now about the veins, the two veins which will enter from here, supraorbital fissure, it will be superior ophthalmic vein. Now superior ophthalmic vein obviously will enter into the middle cranial fossa, while the inferior ophthalmic vein will reach down or reach in the facial skeleton, deep into the facial skeleton. Right, it will reach to the pterygoid plexus, and this will reach to the cavernous sinus. Then there is an artery which goes back. Now this is a recurrent artery. This artery, if you remember, I taught you about the blood supply of meninges. There I told you that the meninges lining the middle cranial fossa, the dura lining the middle anterior, the dura lining the anterior as well as the lateral portion of the middle cranial fossa is being perfused by ophthalmic artery. So it is the recurrent meningeal branch of ophthalmic artery. Like from the ophthalmic artery, a meningeal branch passes back into the middle cranial fossa through the lateral most portion of the supraorbital fissure. So you got to know about the different structures passing through the supraorbital fissure. Now about the muscles, you've seen that the four recti, they take origin from the common tendinous ring. However, the lateral rectus has also additional slip from here, the greater wing of sphenoids. Okay. And this is superior oblique, which takes origin from supromedial portion of this tendinous ring, and this is from the body of sphenoid, and this is LPS, levator palpebrae superioris, that takes origin from above to the superior rectus muscle, and this portion is lesser wing of sphenoid. So LPS takes origin from above to the common tendinous ring, and that is from the lesser wing of sphenoid. Now which muscle is left out here is inferior oblique. Now remember that inferior oblique has an anterior origin in the orbital, in the orbits. So inferior oblique muscle takes origin from the medial wall, inferiorly in the medial wall, nearer to the anterior margin. There it will be the origin of inferior oblique muscle. Actually, inferior oblique muscle forms a sling below the eyeball. That I'm not going to extraocular muscle, that much that must have been taught to you, just a revision. So it actually forms a sling below the eyeball, the inferior oblique. Okay. Now, yes, so we were focusing about the third cranial nerve, oculomotor nerve, which has two divisions. The two divisions, upper and lower division, enter the eyeball, enter the orbit through the middle portion of superorbital fissure. Now look how it supplies. This is the superior division or the upper division. Upper division, this is the comma shaped superorbital fissure. This is the common tendinous ring. And look here, this is superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, lateral rectus. And this is LPS, and this is superior oblique. Superior oblique will also run along the medial wall of the orbit, and there is a trochlee or a pulley at the level of the lateral margin of the lacrimal fossa and lacrimal sac. Sac actually lacrimal fossa में होता है, तो वहां पे there's a pulley और उस pulley से ये wind up करता है. And this muscle, remember, superior oblique muscle has an interbelly tendon. Remember the list. You have different muscles where you find interbelly tendon. Can you tell me other muscles where you find an interbelly tendon? One is digastric, omohyoid, yes. Then occipitofrontalis, which forms the third layer of the scalp. ठीक है, गेलिया एपोन्यूरिटिका जिसे कहते हैं, aponeurotic layer, occipitofrontalis. Then you can add this muscle there. This is superior oblique muscle of the eyeball, which also has an interbelly tendon. Okay. Then can you see this? What I told you is inferior oblique muscle. So inferior oblique muscle आगे से arise कर रही है, and it is winding through the eyeball, so it is actually forming a sling, right? इसी पे eyeball rest रखिए. Remember, eyeball touches the roof, no floor, nor medial wall, nor lateral wall. It has to be fixed in center. Remember how I told you that spinal cord in the vertebral canal is not touching the boundaries of this vertebral canal. It was, lateral transverse stability के लिए you had this ligamentum denticulatum. Vertical stability के लिए you had phylum terminale, right? Similarly, remember that eyeball has to be fixed in its position. Like orbit is a bigger space, so eyeball should not lax inside it. Like it should be fixed in whatever position you are walking, lying down, on doing somersaulting and all. Your eyeball has to be fixed, and for that you have medial and lateral check ligaments, right, for the transverse stability of the eyeball within the orbit. And what prevents sacking down, like to preventing the eyeball to settle on the floor of the orbit, you have this sling formed by the sheath of inferior rectus and inferior oblique, and that sheath is called ligament of Lockwood. Ligament of Lockwood. It's a sling formed onto which it is resting, and rest of the space, remember, in the orbit is packed up by extrabulbar fat. Okay. Now you look here. This is the optic nerve entering into the orbit through the optic canal, and this is the middle portion of superorbital fissure. This is the upper division of oculomotor nerve, and this upper division winds upwards and winding laterally to the optic nerve. It reaches above to the optic nerve, and then it supplies the two muscles there. Which two muscles? LPS and superior rectus. On their bulbar surface. Okay. Then you have this muscle here. Oh, sorry, this is inferior division of oculomotor nerve. Remember, this is a minor division, this is a major or a bigger division. So lower division of oculomotor nerve will supply three muscles. So this nerve to medial rectus will wind medially, passing below the optic nerve, will supply the medial rectus on its medial surface. Then it will supply the inferior rectus on its bulbar surface, and it will supply through the nerve to inferior oblique. Remember this point, that it supplies inferior oblique, not on its bulbar surface, not on its orbital surface, but it supplies inferior oblique on its posterior border. Okay. So among the different branches from the lower division, nerve to inferior oblique is the longest, one thing. Then it is through this nerve to inferior oblique that the parasympathetic fibers also are being conveyed. So they emerge out here from the nerve to inferior oblique, and they have this rootlet through which this ciliary ganglion is suspended. So the preganglionic fibers from Edinger-Westphal nucleus were reaching here to the inferior nerve to inferior oblique, and then they separate out through this root and will relay here in the ciliary ganglion. Okay, this was about the intraorbital course which we have discussed. Now look here, the distribution. I said that this oculomotor nerve is actually running in the cavernous sinus, and within the cavernous sinus, in the anterior portion of the cavernous sinus, it is dividing into superior and inferior branch or division. When it enters into the supraorbital fissure through the middle portion, its upper division will supply LPS and superior rectus on their bulbar surface. Then through its lower division, which is a major division, it will supply medial rectus, inferior rectus, and inferior oblique. Remember, the nerve to inferior oblique is the longest branch oculomotor nerve, and to this branch, it will also give parasympathetic fibers through the ciliary ganglion. And all the muscles are innervated on their bulbar surface, except the inferior oblique, which is innervated on its posterior border. Okay. So this is the summary of the codes and divisions of oculomotor nerve. You've seen once again just a fast revision. The oculomotor nerve emerges in the intracranial codes. They run medially here. Just lately, it was medial longitudinal bundle. In the medially, it was dorsal and ventral tegmental decussation. The nerve passes to the red nucleus, emerges on the medial side of the crus cerebri in the interpedunculaire cistern. Then you can see here it's basilar artery, and it passes between the two arteries. You can correct this. The superior cerebral artery will be passing below to this, and posterior cerebral artery above to this, or you can say the oculomotor runs in between these two artery, posterior cerebral and superior cerebellar arteries, and it will run lateral to the posterior communicating artery. Then it will enter into the cavernous sinus by piercing its roof posteriorly and laterally to the posterior clinoid process. Then within the cavernous sinus, it will divide into its upper and lower divisions. The two divisions will enter into the middle portion of the superior orbital fissure. The superior division, you can see, will supply LPS and superior rectus on the bulbar surface. The lower division will supply inferior rectus and medial rectus and inferior oblique, inferior rectus and medial rectus on the bulbar surface, and inferior oblique on this posterior surface, posterior border. And the nerve to inferior oblique will give out parasympathetic fibers to relay in the ciliary ganglion. Okay. Then yes, inferior oblique is innervated on the posterior border. One important point I have written it here so that you remember that all the muscles, or extraocular muscles I'm talking, are innervated on their orbital surface except lateral rectus, which is innervated on its oculus. Hold on, this is something confusing. All the surfaces, muscles are innervated on their orbital surface. So this is a correction. Make sure you remember this, all the muscles, this is a summary, so recollect from here that all the extra, there are again 7 muscles. So out of these 7 muscles, all the extraocular muscles, make this correction in your mind that all the extraocular muscles are innervated on their orbital surface. It's more important you correct it and remember this, except lateral rectus. Lateral rectus is innervated on its bulbar surface or ocular surface, and inferior oblique on its posterior border. The rest, all the muscles, they are innervated on their outer or the orbital surface. Okay. Okay. Then about the action of individual muscles, this although has been taught to you, just have a fast revision here. It is here you will find is nose. The nose is placed here. These are the two eyeballs. So transverse medially focusing the eye is through medial rectus. Focusing the eye laterally is by lateral. This is like action of individual extraocular muscles, right? Focusing the eye laterally is by lateral rectus. Now look here. Then you have 4 muscles at the 4 corners. You can remember this way. Superior rectus, inferior rectus. So superior rectus, this arrow is actually also pointing that it has a twisting action towards medial side as well. So superior rectus, what it will do is it will elevate the eyeball, like upward gaze के लिए भी है, inwards के लिए भी है, और intorsion के लिए भी है, like rotating the eye towards the eyeball, towards the nose. So this is intorsion. Another diagonally opposite on the lateral side, you can see, ये important है, remember, don't get confused. Superior oblique के action infrolateral है भाई, ये चीज अच्छे से याद रखना. नाम से लगता है superior oblique मतलब ऊपर देख रही होगी, ऐसा नहीं है. It will not help in upward gaze. Superior oblique is for downwards and lateral gaze, and inferior oblique is for upwards and outward gaze. Important है. तो सुपीरियर ऑब्लिक का एक्शन क्या हो जाएगा? डाउनवर्ड्स, laterally, and intorsion, like it will rotate the eye like this towards the nasal side. So this is also for intorsion. Now extorsion means outwards rotation. For outwards rotation, you have this inferior oblique. Look, the action of inferior oblique is upwards, laterally, and extorsion means rotating the eyeball towards temporal side. That is the action of inferior oblique. Inferior rectus, you can see here that inferior rectus is dipping the eyeball downwards for the downward gaze. So downwards, medially rotating the eyes, as well as medially, tilting the eyes, as well as rotating the eyes towards the temporal side. Like, this way you can say is anti-clockwise rotation. If I'm talking about the right eye, right? So anti-clockwise movement will be in the right eye, it will be extorsion movement, and clockwise movement of the rotation of the eyeball along the longitudinal axis, this movement is intorsion. So for intorsion you have superior rectus, superior oblique. For extorsion you have inferior oblique, inferior rectus. Got it? Then for upwards upward gaze में अगर पूछा जाए, if you have to see towards the ceiling, and you have to make your face looking in front. So your both muscles, superior rectus and inferior oblique, both of them will help to elevate the eyeballs. Similarly, for depression of the eyeballs, you have inferior rectus and superior oblique both. Now looking on the medial side, the 3 muscles will come into role. Superior rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus. All the 3 together, 3 will help in medially movement of the eyeball. And lateral movement of the eyeball, you have inferior oblique, lateral rectus, superior oblique. Okay. So these are the 6 different movements. You can they have written it in other ways. You can see Just looking medially is medial rectus. Upwards and inside is superior rectus. Downwards and inside is inferior rectus. Upwards and outwards is inferior oblique. Just looking laterally is lateral rectus. Downwards and outside it is superior oblique. Okay, done. Finally, we are doing with the paralysis or the different clinical conditions seen in case of injury or lesions of the third cranial nerve. So this is lower motor nerve paralysis. Like, you know, when we talk about lower motor nerve paralysis, means any injury after the nerve fibers have emerged out from the oculomotor nerve nucleus. That means the injury can be in the tegmentum. Injury can be in the intercavernous interpedunculaar cistern. Injury can be in the cavernous sinus. Injury can be in the orbits, right? So जितना भी ये course है after from the emerging of the nucleus, that injury will lead to lower motor neuron paralysis. ठीक, अब उसमें clinical signs क्या हो जाएंगे? Lower motor neuron paralysis of third cranial nerve में टोसिस हो जाएगा भाई. टोसिस इज ड्रूपिंग ऑफ द आईलिड्स. यू नो एलपीएस पैरालाइज हो गई है तो टोसिस होगा. बट रिमेंबर टोसिस विल बी पार्शियल और कंप्लीट. हु विल टेल मी? टोसिस विल बी पार्शियल और कंप्लीट? Partial, very good, because there is a smooth muscle component of LPS which is attached to the upper margin of the tarsal plate, superior tarsus पे attached होती है, and that is called Muller's muscle, and that is innervated by sympathetic outflow. Remember Horner syndrome, वहाँ पे भी Horner syndrome में partial ptosis ही होता है, because there the skeletal portion is fine and the smooth muscle component is paralyzed. ठीक है, so because of the smooth muscle component partial ptosis होगी. Lateral squint क्यों होगा? Simple सी बात है. If out of the 7 muscles, remember out of the 7 muscles 5 were paralyzed, right? So फिर unopposed action किसका होगा? Unopposed action 2 muscles का होगा. कौन सी? SO4 LR6. ठीक, that means superior oblique and lateral rectus will be working fine. So superior oblique का action क्या था? Downwards and outwards, remember. And lateral rectus का क्या movement था? Lateral gaze. So ultimately, if a person comes with you with a lower motor neuron paralysis of oculomotor nerve, you will find what type of squint? Lateral squint, or the better word is this type of squint. Downwards and outwards squint होगा. ठीक है? Downwards and abducted eye, it is the better word, because lateral rectus and superior oblique both are working fine. So this person with lower motor oculomotor nerve palsy will have his ipsilateral eye looking downwards and outwards. Okay, और क्या होगा? Drooping eyelid, partial ptosis बता दिया मैंने. Dilatation of the pupil भी हो जाएगा. Dilatation of the pupil क्यों? Because fibers, the parasympathetic fibers from meningovespal, that also is gone. So what will happen? The constrictor pupillae का action नहीं होगा, or you can say unopposed action of dilator pupillae हो जाएगा because of sympathetic overtone. ठीक है? So pupils will be dilated and fixed. एक और important बात है, dilated तो है ये, लेकिन fixed भी है. Fixed का मतलब होता है वही, you know, light reflex जब check करते हैं, so that light reflex will be lost. So fixed and dilated pupils हो जाएंगे, and loss of accommodation भी हो जाएगा. दूर और पास में जो हम देखते हैं, you can accommodate, like, you know, reading a book and immediately looking far off, you accommodate easily. So ये power of accommodation will not be there, and slight proptosis भी हो जाएगा. Proptosis is slight and forward bulging of the eyes, right? Because muscles तो सारी paralyzed हो गई है. Proptosis क्यों हो जाएगा? Proptosis इसलिए हो जाएगा. Can you think the two muscles which are normal here, superior oblique and lateral rectus? Among this, you know, if you remember, superior oblique, what did I told you? That it was arising from the medial portion of the common tendinous, separately medial. supromedial from this common tendinous above to this common tendinous ring from the body of sphenoid, and this muscle was running on the superior oblique was running on the medial wall of the orbit. And when it reaches the anterior superior margin of the orbit, there is a pulley, the trochlear, attached to the lateral crest of the lacrimal bone, and from there this muscle winds backwards and laterally to insert onto the posterior superior border surface of the sclera of the eyeball, behind the equator of the eyeball. So that means that this eyeball has an anterior pull by which muscle? By superior oblique, because of its interbelly tendon, the belly which is running after this trochlea, that is pulling the eyeball forwards. So because of the unopposed action of the 5 muscles, superior oblique will pull the eyeballs anteriorly. So remember, slight proptosis will be there. And of course, diplopia means double vision, because one pupil is directed separately in one direction and the other pupil is directed differently. So there will be diplopia, right? And apart from this, the secondary features, yeah, habitual features वो ये होंगे when a person has suffering from this problem. So what will happen, he will have a habit because of ptosis and less opening of the palpebral fissure. He will have a habit of elevating the eyelids and the eyebrows. So because of the raised eyebrow, because continuously in a habit to slightly open his eyes, he will have to use the role of यहाँ पे कौन सी होती है मसल, फ्रंटालिस, राइट? सो इसमें क्या होगा, क्योंकि इसमें यू हैव दिस, yes, facial nerve is fine, right? So orbitalis was causing the transverse crease on the forehead. यहाँ पे procerus था, superior corrugator supercilii थे, right? But remember, frontalis was a muscle which was lifting up the eyebrows, right? So frontalis and corrugator supercilii, although corrugator supercilii का role इसमें नहीं है, it's mainly frontalis. So with the help of frontalis, he will try to elevate the eyelids. And यहाँ पे कौन सी थी, orbicularis oculi, although orbicularis oculi is meant to close the eyelids, but यहाँ पे जो role है वो frontalis का है, ठीक है? So with this, because of this person will have a creases, on the wrinkles on the forehead and raised eyebrow on the ipsilateral side, which are secondary features. Now we'll talk about upper motor neuron paralysis. अपर मोटर न्यूरॉन पैरालिसिस मतलब यहाँ पे बात हो रही है या तो पिरामिडल ट्रैक से जो कम्युनिकेशन था इसका, ठीक है, कॉर्टिको न्यूक्लियर फाइबर्स का, और टेक्टो बल्बर ट्रैक का, जो टेक्टो कौन सा न्यूक्लियस था ये, प्रीटेक्टल न्यूक्लियस. दे वर, रिमेंबर, फॉर द light reflex, conjugate light reflex, I told you that pretectal nucleus was relaying fibers to both the right and left nucleus of oculomotor nerve for consensual light reflex. So that means loss of conjugate movement of the eye will be there, ठीक है, क्योंकि अपर मोटर न्यूरॉन्स की बात हो रही है, यानी कि द फाइबर्स व्हिच हैव येट नॉट रीच्ड द ऑक्यूलोमोटर नर्व न्यूक्लियस, अगर वहां पे इंजरी है, जैसे प्रीटेक्टल न्यूक्लियस की बात हो रही है, right? And because it was sending fibers to both the sides, so that means your conjugate eye movements will be lost. यानी हम उसमें एक आई में, let's say right eye में हम टॉर्च डालते हैं, तो what will happen, it should normally constrict people on one side as well as on the opposite side, bilaterally same. So this will not be seen, ठीक है, because of upper motor neuron. Remember, this is loss of conjugate movement of the eyes, ठीक. And एक बात और बताएं कि क्या वेबर सिंड्रोम की बात करते हैं. वेबर सिंड्रोम में क्या होता है, इट्स अ ब्रेन स्टेम लीजन, लाइक ब्रेन स्टेम में अंदर लीजन हो सकता है, तो दैट कैन बी मोस्टली बिकॉज ऑफ वैस्कुलर इंजरी. वैस्कुलर तुमने देख लिया, यहाँ पे पोस्टीरियर सेरेब्रल आर्टरीज भी जा रही थी, देन यू हैव इंटायर सर्कुलर विलिस भी है यहाँ पे, पोस्टीरियर कम्युनिकेटिंग आर्टरीज भी है. सो एनी वैस्कुलर इंजरी might cause this lesion here in the midbrain. And उसमें होता है क्या, वेबर सिंड्रोम में याद रखना कि क्रस सेरेब्राई के लेवल पे ये इंजरी होगी एंड टेगमेंटम विल बी इन्वॉल्व एज वेल. तो मिड ब्रेन का जो सेक्शन था, इफ यू रिमेंबर द डायग्राम, तो ऑक्यूलोमोटर नर्व के साथ जो नर्व है एज वेल एज दैट पोर्शन ऑफ द सेरेब्रल पेडंकल जिस तरफ की ब्लड सप्लाई हैम्पर हो रही है, so there will be ischemia in that side. So what will happen, ये जो crus cerebri था, right, crus cerebri से what was passing is cortico nuclear as well as corticospinal fibers were passing, and these fibers go down below in the medulla, they decussate 85% reach to the opposite side. So that means there will be contralateral hemiplegia and ipsilateral paralysis of third cranial nerve, because third cranial nerve passes through at the same, यहाँ पे जो oculomotor sulcus था cerebral peduncle में, third nerve injury भी हो रही है, यानी कि ipsilateral same features होंगे, ipsilateral paralysis of oculomotor nerve, and उसका opposite half of the body will be paralyzed. So contralateral hemiplegia including ipsilateral paralysis of the third cranial nerve. This will happen because of ischemic or vascular injury at the upper portion of midbrain in the tegmentum, including the crus cerebri. Okay, that's Weber syndrome. Now, what can happen if there is compression of third cranial nerve? कंप्रेशन कहाँ पे हो सकता है थर्ड क्रेनियल नर्व का? कंप्रेशन हो सकता है इंटरपेडेंकुलर सिस्टर्न में, हो सकता है कैवर्नस साइनस में, हो सकता है ऑर्बिट में, हो सकता है, राइट. ऑक्यूलोमोटर नर्व कैन बी कंप्रेस्ड. नाउ दिस कंप्रेशन कैन बी बिकॉज ऑफ एनी एक्स्ट्राड्यूरल हेमाटोमा, राइट, एक्स्ट्राड्यूरल हेमाटोमा होगा. और रिमेंबर व्हेन आई वाज डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द डिफरेंस इन फीचर्स seen in extradural hematoma, in subdural hematoma, in subarachnoid hematoma, right? So I told you, remember, the main important thing was subdural hemorrhage में क्या था? That was venous blood, and epidural में it was arterial blood, as well as in subarachnoid में arterial blood था. But जो एक difference था वो CSF का भी था, right? क्योंकि subdural में there will be blood in CSF, subarachnoid hemorrhage में blood in CSF, लेकिन epidural hematoma में क्या होगा? There will be no blood in CSF. But main thing मैंने एक और difference बताई थी कि epidural hematoma का जो paralysis होगा उसके features face पे early आएंगे, body पे बाद में आएंगे, and subdural hematoma में जो paralysis के features होंगे वो haphazard होते हैं, not fixed. ठीक, तो इसका रीजन समझ गए, क्योंकि क्रेनियल नर्व्स जो हैं वो जब एपिड्यूरल है एंड तो ये वाली क्रेनियल नर्व्स को कंप्रेशन की वजह से ये जो नर्व्स की हैं, यहाँ पे सिर्फ थर्ड ही नर्व नहीं है बल्कि सिक्स्थ है, फोर्थ है, एंड रिमेंबर एट्थ एंड seventh also they are running in internal acoustic meatus. There also is a perineural sheath. So features of paralysis are seen early on the face in case of epidural hematoma. So compression of third nerve can be in extradural hematoma. Aneurysm, right? Remember ये चिमटे की तरह से दबाए हुए हैं, दो आर्टरीज चिमटे की तरह से दबाए हुए हैं, किसको? थर्ड एंड फोर्थ क्रेनियल नर्व्स, ऊपर से पोस्टीरियर सेरेब्रल आर्टरी, नीचे से सुपीरियर सेरेब्रल आर्टरी. अगर इनमें एन्यूरिज्म्स होंगे, डायलिटेशंस होंगे, obviously they are going to compress this nerve, right? So aneurysm of posterior cerebral or superior cerebral artery and parasympathetic symptoms appear early. This is very important point. देखो अभी सारे paralysis की बारे बात हुई थी. Now we talking about compression, and compression में normally this can repair very well if treated early. Because सिर्फ compression हो रहा है ना, there is no like irreversible damage, only because of compression. So remember that in an it's very important, I'm telling you, oculomotor nerve nucleus, if you remember, there was a ringovespal nucleus situated centrally, rostrally, projecting nucleus, right? तो उस पॉइंट को याद रखना कि उसी तरह से ocular nerve जब ये इमर्ज करती है, ऑर्बिट में जाती है, if you take a transverse section of oculomotor nerve, you will find that the parasympathetic fibers are running peripherally in the nerve. ये important. अब कोई भी नर्व में जो फाइबर्स पेरिफेरली लोकेटेड होंगे, इफ दैट नर्व इज बीइंग कंप्रेस्ड, तो पहले वही फाइबर्स पे एक्शन होगा ना, डैमेज होगा जो कि पेरिफेरली लोकेटेड है. द इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट इज दैट द पैरासिम्पैथेटिक fibers from the dingovespal nucleus, they are running peripherally in the oculomotor nerve. So in case of compression of oculomotor nerve, पैरालिसिस यानी कि स्क्विंट बाद में होगा. पहले क्या होगा? लॉस ऑफ प्यूपिलरी रिफ्लेक्स एंड लॉस ऑफ अकोमोडेशन रिफ्लेक्स. दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट, याद रखना इस बात को. ठीक है. एंड हियर वी हैव डन